Hey everybody, Rebecca here with Bexa Boss Lady and Boss Lady Resale. I am excited to talk to you about part 2 of my 4-part endometriosis and hysterectomy procedure video vlog series that I've decided to create. And if you watched the first one already, you kind of know my background and my history and why I decided to do this. And so for those of you who just jumped into this video, I will give you a really quick recap. I was diagnosed with endometriosis about 6 or 7 years ago, and after that I was subsequently diagnosed with other things. I had a surgery to ablate or burn the endometriosis lesions off. And no one really told me what to expect after that, except that they had this surgery, and that was kind of the end of it. And then it seemed that after that, for the next 6 years, I've just struggled with a wide variety of random symptoms, ailments, and things that have progressively gotten worse regardless of what doctor or what procedure or what thing I had done. And the last 2 years have really been a culmination of the last 6 years. So in this 6-year journey, I have learned so many things, and I've also met so many different women that struggle with the same kind of thing, where they're just going to doctor to doctor to doctor trying to figure out what is wrong with them. Now, I'm only sharing these videos and my personal story. I am not a medical provider. Obviously, I have no medical experience. I am not telling you you have this disease or not. I'm just simply sharing my story so that other people might be able to jump a couple steps ahead if they think that this is what they have going on. So let's just jump right into this. I have, for the last 2 years, had a blockage of my kidneys. I almost lost my left kidney. I've had swelling everywhere, my ankles, my wrists. I've had chronic headaches and migraines. My whole body has been inflamed. I've just been so fatigued some days that I can't get out of bed. I've been having insomnia, trouble sleeping, and the list really just goes on. And what had happened was everyone was just referring me to other doctors, and I never really got an answer. And so I knew I was diagnosed with endometriosis when I had surgery in 2011, but no one really told me what that meant for the future, what to expect. And really, a lot of the stuff that I had going on when I would do Google searching and finding people like me who were sharing their stories, it didn't really seem to line up. So I just kept searching for answers, and I never gave up. That's the one thing that I want to reinforce that with every single video that I make is, even though I had to quit my job, even though I had to have multiple surgeries, even though I just had to make it work, I truly believed that there was an answer out there and I would find it and feel better. And it's so important that you have that mindset. And don't get me wrong, I mean, my husband will attest, there were days where I would just cry and lay in bed and feel sorry for myself and get angry. And it really didn't do me any good. It was those days where I was determined and frustrated and angry and sick that really pushed me forward to go to the next level with this. So when I had my kidney blockage, and I'm going to go into some details, so if you don't really want to hear all about this, that's fine. But for those of you women who are watching and very interested, this is what I think is important, is that I had a kidney failure in 2015, and it was caused from an unknown blockage in my ureter. And that was an incidental finding from an ovarian cyst that I had, that a sonogram specialist had found. I was immediately referred to a urologist. They thought I had cancer. They thought I had kidney stones. They thought I had a tumor. No one really knew or understood why I had this blockage. And in December of 2015, I ended up undergoing a ureter reimplantation surgery, where they cut the part of your ureter that is blocked, and then they reattach it into your bladder. And while that was happening, I ended up with pneumonia in the hospital. I was there for 8 days. My implantation was great. I started to feel amazing about I would say 2 months after the surgery. And I remember standing in my kitchen with my husband in the morning, and he like was shocked because I'm not a morning person. Sorry, I'm just not. I hate mornings. I've always hated mornings. But my husband's sitting here at our kitchen table, and I come out of the bedroom at like 7:45, and I'm gonna go work out, and life is great. And I just said to him, I just feel so good. And I really thought that was the end of all of these issues. And it only was March then before literally the shit started to hit the fan again. And my first menstrual cycle was probably the worst thing I've ever had in my life. And little did I know that it was only going to get subsequently even more awful every month after that. And so March really started a new journey for me of, well, I thought my kidney failing was my issue, and now it wasn't, so I have to move forward again on this new journey to figure out what was wrong. So when I was originally found out that I had a blockage and I had my cyst in the middle of 2015, I was originally planning to send my information. I had always suspected it was endometriosis, always. I asked every single doctor I went to whether my symptoms were endometriosis related. I was told, no, it doesn't really sound like that. It sounds more like your thyroid. It's this, it's that, it's the other. And so I was repeatedly turned down by doctors on my hypothesis that this was caused by endometriosis. So I had eventually in 2015 decided I was going to take this into my own hands and go see a specialist, either at the center in Atlanta, there's an endometriosis center in Atlanta, or Dr. Suchkin, who is in New York City. And I was actually in the process of sending all of my medical records from Ohio, from here, all of them to send to New York City and to Atlanta for them to review to see if they could give me an opinion and maybe do an assessment with me. And at that time then, my kidney was failing, and that kind of jumped the line of priority because it was functioning at less than 20%. So I kind of put that on the back burner. And then when this happened in March, I was like, oh, are you kidding me? This cannot be happening again. And I was told it was my thyroid. I was told it was post-surgery. I kept going back to the urologist because I was having urinary issues again, and I'm like, there has to be something wrong, and she would do scans and this, that, and the other, and everything always came back okay. So each month that I progressed, so March through November, were just terrible. And in July, I ended up having to leave my job because I just couldn't. There were about 10 days of the month at least where I was so fatigued and my stomach hurt so bad and my period was so heavy and the cramps, it was like there was a little man like in my uterus and my ovaries and my pelvic area, and my migraines were awful to the point where I was taking so many pills. I really don't even know how I got through all of that. And then in November, I finally said, this is enough. And I sent my information to Dr. Tamer Sechen's office in New York City. And I ended up getting a call from his office saying that he is interested in doing an assessment with me. You know, they had looked at my files and felt I was a candidate. And I booked an appointment for January of this year. Yeah, 2017. So throughout that time, I was so nervous. And the whole fall of last year, I went to rheumatologists, cardiologists, general practitioners, gynecologists, sports medicine doctors, endocrinologists, I might have already said that, gastroenterologist, I already say that, I don't know. But literally, it was doctor. I was a professional patient at this, full-time patient from August to November until I got this doctor's appointment, and I just said, enough. I'm gonna wait until I get there, and we're gonna see what he says. So he was actually the first doctor. Before I met with him, I had to get a pelvic MRI, and I was able to get that. So I live in Washington, D.C., and I had to travel to New York City to meet with him, and I had the procedure, the MRI up there the morning before I met with him in the afternoon, and they gave me the results back, and I was thinking to myself, this is the first doctor ever that has ordered a pelvic MRI on me in 6 years when everyone knew that I had endometriosis. The first doctor. I've never had a pelvic MRI. I didn't even have a pelvic MRI when I was having my kidney issues, let alone this stuff. So that was kind of mind-boggling to me that this is the first time I was having this happen. Now, I want you to know that there is no definitive way to diagnose endometriosis without a laparoscopy, which is where they put the little thing in here, they blow up their stomach, and they look around. So what they can find in there is a variety of other things that usually then lead to that diagnosis. So I then found out that I had several things connected to each other, and obviously I'm not a medical doctor, but when he looked at the report, he said, and then he did an exam, and he said, if you are not planning on having children, you need a hysterectomy, because I also, on top of the endometriosis, had adenomyosis and some endometriomas, which they call chocolate cysts on my left ovary. And there's no cure for the and I don't know if I'm saying this right, I just keep calling it this, but the adenomyosis is only in your uterus, and the only cure for it really is to have a hysterectomy. Now, if you want to have kids, they can shave it down and do all this other stuff. And my husband and I are at the point now where we've chosen not to have children, and I just wanted to go this route to be in better shape. And a lot of the symptoms for adenomyosis were the ones that I was having, where they were blaming my thyroid, and they were blaming my weight gain because I was eating too much, when literally nothing had changed on that. From March of last year to September of last year, I gained almost 40 pounds. That is not normal. And it was all in my stomach, which is very abnormal for me. I have a big butt, and I cannot lie, right? So most of my weight gain usually is in my butt. So for me to get it in my arms and my belly is totally different. If you start gaining weight in places that is abnormal for your body type, there is something wrong. And I was right. I was right in my assessment. I was right that I couldn't lose the weight, and it was a lot of hormonal stuff going on in my body. So I ended up scheduling. Dr. Sechkin is not on my insurance. They had a flat rate for me based on my insurance for out of network, and it was a lot of money, and I had to save for it. So I booked out my surgery after a family vacation in March. So March 31st of this year was my surgery. So today's May 26th. So I'm almost 8 weeks. This is 7 weeks out. And of course I did all the research you can imagine before I had this surgery. I, was on all the blogs, and I joined every Facebook group I could get on, and I was reading websites and what to bring and what not to bring and what happens. And it was too much. You guys, it was too much. Don't do that. Don't do what I'm doing. Don't do what I did. I'm sorry. Don't start crazy researching stuff, because it will drive you nuts. My surgery was scheduled in New York City. We had to travel there. I had to have my pre-surgery testing done in New York City a couple days before my surgery. So I was in New York City for 10 days. Thankfully, we had enough Marriott rewards points that I was able to book 10 nights in New York City with points, so that we didn't have to pay for. So that was a huge cost saving for us. We had planned on using those points for our 10-year wedding anniversary, but health is so much more important, and this was a priority over, traveling, obviously. Health over wealth, I don't know, I guess. But so some of the things that I prepared for at the hotel room, because I knew I was going to be limited, were a couple things. One, I made sure that the hospital knew I was recovering, and I asked for a medically needed refrigerator. So the hotel that we were in was not one with a kitchen and stuff, and so they gave me a mini fridge to put in our room. So I had a refrigerator for drinks and different stuff to eat and all that kind of stuff. I ordered stuff from Amazon delivered to the hotel, and they were so great about making sure I got everything. because I flew there, so I couldn't take all this stuff with me. So a couple of things that I'm really glad that I ordered were a body pillow, and it's a big long pillow. They have them on Amazon. There's like $60 with the case, and I wanted to make sure I had that. And I ordered a blanket, and what else did I order? Just a couple like smaller things that I really didn't want to travel with. And so before in the hotel room, I had tons of snacks. I had lotion, I had granny panties, like gigantic underwear because I wasn't sure, what to expect after the fact. I had lots of sweatpants and loose fitting shirts. I had my body pillow. I had a really soft blanket. My mom and I bought one at TJ Maxx when we were there. It was like $12. Let's see, I made a little list here. Lotion, chapstick, furry socks. I ended up being really hot afterwards, so I really didn't even end up using a lot of the kind of warmer, like a robe and that stuff. I didn't even end up using that. So I pretty much just put as much as I could in the hotel room. And I mean, we were in New York City, so I mean, anything we needed was at our disposal. My husband could have gone anywhere and picked up our stuff. But I just wanted to make sure that when we first got back to the hotel room, I had whatever I thought I was gonna need there and ready to go. So the morning of my surgery, we went in, and my husband and my mother was there. They prepped me, got me ready. I had to do I'm sweating. Ugh. Speaking of sweating, I had to do a whole like antiseptic bath in the pre-area before I put my gowns on. And there are these giant cloths, and I don't know if everybody uses them. I've never used these before at a procedure, so I'm not sure if everybody does it or just this hospital, but you like just wipe your whole self down with them, and then you end up kind of sticky from the residue. But they took me back into the room, sedated me. I don't remember anything. I just remember waking up in the recovery room. And the biggest thing that I noticed, and for those of you who have been struggling with chronic pain, especially uterine pain, ovarian pain, pelvic pain, that kind of stuff. I mean, I had just been operated on for 3.5 hours. And the first thing I noticed when I woke up was this emptiness, like this huge thing had just been pulled out, like a splinter. When you pull it out and you're like, oh, that feels so much better. I felt nothing. And for so many years, I had been in chronic pain that I obviously I'm on drugs. I'm all doped up from the anesthesia and all that stuff, but there really are no words to describe how I felt as soon as I woke up, except that, not to say I felt amazing, because I didn't. I mean, I was definitely in pain, but it was a different pain. It was a much, much different pain than what I have been experiencing for the last 6 years. And so I did spend the night in the hospital, partially because I was in New York City, we weren't at home, and I guess the doctor's protocol is that out-of-state patients, he tends to try to keep at the hospital in case something were to happen, because we would be at a hotel. And so I fell back asleep after recovery. They put you in the hotel room, and they had taken out my catheter and all of that kind of stuff. The one thing that really, I couldn't get comfortable in the bed. I mean, my belly was so sore, just because I had 7 holes cut into my stomach. So they were in my belly button, the sides, and then I had one about this big right in my pubic area. And so, it was hard for me to sit up and that kind of thing. And one of the things that was frustrating for me that I felt the hospital wasn't doing properly was they were overhydrating me and giving me so much fluid where every 45 minutes or an hour I had to get up and go to the restroom. Now, at the time, it was awful. It was miserable. Like, I'm 12 hours out of surgery and I'm getting up every 45 minutes to go to the bathroom. But my hypothesis is that I did so well the next few days because I did that. And, it didn't matter what I was reading about, and I've had surgeries before and they say the same thing. The sooner you can get up and start walking, even if it's torturous and it is so painful and awful, The more you can get up and start walking, the shorter time it's going to take you to get back to normal. So I really, I was getting up, going to the bathroom like 8 times. And then, I had to, when they discharged me, we had to go into the car. Funny story. We're going to get into our Uber SUV to leave. It's not really funny, but we're sitting there waiting, and I look disgusting. And I'm in these baggy clothes. I have no bra on, and the car is right, like we walk out and the car is right there waiting for me and my husband, and they're loading the car, and all of a sudden another car rear ends the car next to our Uber car, and I'm like, oh my God, all I want to do is get to the hotel in the bed. And I was so grateful that they did not hit our Uber car. I mean, I can't even tell you, because I feel like that would have been a terrible omen to leave and be like, oh, my car just got in an accident. So fingers crossed, and thankfully that didn't happen to us. But one of the other things that I did do before my surgery is I did go to the dry bar and get a blowout. And if you watch any of my videos, I do go there twice a week. I have another place here, but my hair lasted 5 days. Now, I have hair that lasts for blowouts, so anyway, I did do that because I felt so much better. I didn't have to worry about it, and that's just a thing I do. I don't know. If you want to do it, go do it. If not, who cares? But I did feel so much better. Just washing your hair and just having your hair done just made me feel a million times better. So I digress. So after we avoid this accident, we get to the hotel, we get upstairs, and I sleep a little bit, but it's hot in here. Gotta turn the air on. But the one thing that I will tell you is, obviously my belly was very sore. But when you have any kind of surgery where they do a scope, they blow up your belly with carbon dioxide, and then that kind of floats around in your body. And I really was not anticipating this, but the worst pain that I had out of this entire recovery was in my shoulders and my neck from that, like from the, the carbon dioxide. And so I wish, my wish list here on my little notebook is, I wish I would have had some kind of like massager, or my husband just kept rubbing my neck, but some kind of like knob thing that we could rub in my neck, because really nothing helped that, nothing. And so if you have a surgery like a hysterectomy and you have pain up in here, for me it lasted about 2 days, and it was awful. I couldn't sleep. It was so uncomfortable. But I survived it, and that's, that was definitely the worst part about everything. So get something for your neck, a neck massager, don't freak out if your neck and your shoulders hurt, because then it gave me a headache, so I had to deal with that. It was just kind of weird that you're on, pain pills, and then you can still have pain, but it is what it is. So some of the things I will tell you after the fact is, we were in New York City for 5 days after my procedure, and the first couple days I didn't want to eat anything. All I did was drink ginger ale and water and ice, and I didn't eat anything. It wasn't until like the 3rd or 4th day that I started eating something. And part of the problem for me, and I know this about myself, is anesthesia, and when it starts to wear off, it makes me extremely nauseous. Very nauseous. For days I was nauseous, and I kept having to take some anti-nausea medicine. So I think that affected my desire to eat and that kind of stuff. But I really didn't want to eat anything for those first couple days. And then I started eating just very basic stuff like pretzels, mashed potatoes, bread and butter. That's it. I mean, one of our room service orders was sourdough bread, butter, and mashed potatoes and butter. That's literally the only thing I ate at the hotel. So afterwards, my stomach, was very distended. It was very bloated. I did not even end up wearing those underwear. Now I still kept my cervix and my ovaries. So if you have a hysterectomy and you have everything removed, I can't really speak to that because I didn't really have that much blood afterwards. I really didn't bleed that much after the fact, you know, when I went to the restroom or just in general. So I really can't speak to that. I can just say that all I had was my uterus and all of the endometriosis excised, and that I did not end up needing those granny panties. I didn't end up needing half of the stuff that I bought because, well, I didn't know. I just wanted to make sure everything was okay. So, but those kind of the things that I'll tell you are like ginger ale, ice, like I said, soft kind of bland foods like oatmeal, bread, you know, mashed potatoes, like the very bland, easy foods, Jell-O. I really didn't want anything with flavors. I think that's partially because I was nauseous, so, you know, that wasn't the fact. But I went back to the doctor 5 days after, and I was walking. We took a car there, and I walked, and then I walked a couple blocks, and then I walked a couple more blocks, and I ended up walking in New York City about two miles after 5 days out from my surgery. Now, it was slow, and I paid for it the next day, but the weather was so nice, and I had been so cooped up in the room. But I was so relieved after my doctor's appointment that everything had gone well, and my pathology reports had not come back yet, but they did come back a couple weeks later, and the endometriosis was confirmed on all the places that we thought it was going to be. And I was just so relieved, elated, happy that finally I had some answers. Finally, I felt that I was on the right track to feeling better. Now, I have other autoimmune diseases, so this is not the end of it. Endometriosis never goes away. Regardless if you have surgery, if you have a partial, full hysterectomy, you will always have endometriosis. So if someone tells you that the hysterectomy is a cure for endometriosis, that is not true at all. So you can do the research on that, but that is not true. So it is likely, it is possible that this could come back at some time in the future. And you know what? Now I know the signs. I know what to look for. I know that I know where to go for help. And that's the most important part to me. So now I'm just, you know, I'm going to do another video because this one's kind of long, but I'll do another video, part 3 of where I am now, what I did to recover, you know, where I'm going to go from here. And hopefully, if you have any questions, please send me a message or, you know, follow me on social media at Boss Lady Resale on Instagram. I'm Bexa Boss Lady on Twitter. I have a Bexa Boss Lady on Instagram as well. I don't check that one as much, but, you know, you can comment below. Anything that I can do to help you, I am more than happy to do it. If you have questions, I can do a Q&A kind of video. I don't mind. I am an open book, and I am willing to share my story if it helps other women struggling with this, because it stole my life. It really did. I used to be crazy, type A, go nonstop, a million projects at a time, overachiever, and it just sucked the life out of me. I had the brain fog, would made it difficult for me to do almost anything. And the sadness of knowing that this was a different life for me was overwhelming. And I did end up going to counseling. My husband and I went to marriage counseling because he didn't know really how to help me, and I didn't know how he could help me, and we just needed to open the doors of communication on how this was our new life and what we could do to make things better. So now I am focused on, you know, making sure my thyroid issues are okay, that I get my migraines under control, and I can get this weight off that I gained. It's not a lot, but it's just uncomfortable for me. And that's what I'm gonna do. So if you got anything out of this video, I just wanna make sure that you know that a hysterectomy was the best decision I ever made for myself, for my health issues. Going to a specialist, spending thousands upon thousands of dollars was the best thing we ever did. And if you want to know how I paid for it, you can watch some of my other videos. I resold stuff, I thrifted, I did part-time consulting, I took any kind of side gigs I could get, side hustled my way through these medical bills. And there are solutions to this. There's no reason we should suffer for years and years and years without having answers for our health. It's just not acceptable to me, and I will speak out to anyone who wants to hear it, who doesn't want to hear it, who needs to hear it, and make sure that moving forward, I can help those be inspired to take their health care under their own wings and in their own charge, and be able to move forward with their lives, or, you know, function with what's happening with their lives right now. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any feedback or anything or emails, just let me know. Questions, I'd love to answer them. All of my links and everything are right below in the comment section. And again, thank you so much for watching. And if you're struggling with this, I hope you get the answers that you are looking for like I did, and just don't give up. Thanks for watching. Bye.